All right, so welcome everyone to today's session. We're really happy to see you. It's actually our third Create Along with Canva. It's about lights, mic, and action, so creating podcasting and video easily in Canva. Um, as I mentioned, it's our third session. The two previous ones were mostly introductory sessions. What is Canva, the basics of the tool, using templates, and creating accessible and inclusive visuals. If ever you missed the two first sessions, don't worry. We are actually going to they were quite popular, so we got a request to reoffer them in the spring. So after the New Year's, we'll look at our calendars and publish some dates. So if ever you missed those, we will give them again, the first two sessions. If ever you have any questions throughout the workshop, feel free to either raise your hand or drop your question in the chat. Stacy, Lexi, and I will be more than happy to help you out with your questions. So for those who already attended one of the two first sessions, we like to do a little icebreaker activity with the interactive whiteboard within Canva. So in the chat, you'll find the link to the presentation as mentioned. So just click on that link and then go to slide 3 of the presentation where you'll see my screen. There's the interactive whiteboard. And we have some questions for you to answer before we get started. So to fill out the 3 polls, you just have to click on the answer. So what level do you teach? What is your experience with Canva? And if you have any previous video or podcasting experience. Then if you have any questions, here you can zoom in. You just have to click on a little sticky note, and then you can add your text if ever you have a question you'd like to see answered today. So we'll give you about 2 minutes just to answer the polls and to click on the sticky notes. As you can see, I'm like zooming in and zooming out. So if ever you get to your screen and there's nothing, try like this. This might happen. Try moving around to find the information or zoom out, and then you'll find it quite easily. So for those just arriving, the link is in the link to the slides is in the chat. Just click on the link, then head to slide 3 and answer the following questions, please.
For those who have just arrived, I put the link to our presentation in the chat. We're currently all on slide 3, and we're answering the polls and writing any questions we have on a sticky note.
While you're filling it in, this is a really fun brainstorming tool that you can use with your students if ever you need a space to brainstorm. If students have accounts, their names will show up, but you can also choose that the sticky notes are anonymous. Like today, we chose for them to be anonymous. We'll give you about 1 more minute. Here we have a few people, it's their first time, some a handful of times, and others are experts. What level? 25%, 63 elementary. We have some consultants, a bit of high school. All right. So while we're presenting, we're one of the 3 of us is going to be looking at those sticky notes, and we're going to try to answer your questions throughout the presentation. So for today, as mentioned, we're going to be using Canva to experiment with creating videos and podcasts. You'll see it's a really user-friendly way to create them. We're hoping to have some time at the end also to have you start creating either a video or a podcast. Um, you'll be able to get started and to maybe do a few minutes into it. And then we'll have a sharing and reflection part to the workshop. So this ties really well into digital competency. With Quebec, there's a framework for digital competency, and there are 12 dimensions to develop for teachers, for students. Really, it can apply to anyone who uses technology. Um, we identified four main dimensions that this activity touches. So first of all, collaboration. Doing collaboration, you can work with other students on the projects. Communication, so using Canva as a tool to create media and to communicate or demonstrate your learning. Obviously, content production, so using technology to produce media. And one that's really important here is ethical citizenship. So also how to be a good digital citizen online. Here, we just wanted to emphasize never to put personal information and to have this conversation with your students that when you're creating something such as an infographic or a podcast or a video that you're publishing online, just to never put personal information such as your full name or your address, your phone number, your credit card information, obviously. So these are good activities to model these conversations and to get students ready to practice good online skills. We also added a link to the Digital Competency in Action site. This is our site where we publish resources, professional development about technology. So if ever you need more information, you can just click on that link. Yeah. And before we present creating podcasts and videos, I just wanted to touch upon the shift or the balance between consuming media and content and creating it. So I think as adults, but also as students, we spend a lot of time consuming videos, information, podcasts. Sometimes we can spend hours scrolling on our phones. But where it gets really fun and educational is that shift. Instead of just consuming the content, we're turning ourselves into content creators and the students as well. So having the students go through this process of creating media helps them to demonstrate their learning in a different way. It also allows them to have voice, to share their own stories, their knowledge, and especially to get creative. Some feel that they're not creative people, but don't worry. Being creative is a muscle that you have to develop, that you have to work on. So if you feel like you're not creative, don't worry about it. It's by doing it that you'll become more and more creative. And also by having students create media and content instead of just consuming it, you're really setting them up for the future and you're helping them develop a foundation of skills that they can transfer to different areas of their life. I'm talking about creativity especially, but communication skills using podcasting and videos, collaborative skills, digital competency, as I mentioned it, and a lot of problem solving. Sometimes with technology comes problem solving. So especially today, I want you to keep in mind that you can use creating podcasts and videos to provide students with that opportunity to have voice, to express themselves differently from, for example, just a written assignment. Also, if you're thinking larger as a community, you can also have students interview, for example, elders or have them tell their stories within the community. So there's kind of the importance and the benefits of it. And I'll pass the mic to Stacy, who will get into the details of how to create them using Canva.
Thanks, Carol. So I'll just take over the screen for a moment. Wonderful. Great. So we're going to begin by talking about podcasting, which is one of my favorite topics. So before we get into how to create a podcast with Canva, we just want to do a quick overview about some of the steps to producing podcasts, maybe with students in class. So this is a 6-step process that was created by our partners at RÉCIT for RÉCIT for Univers Social. And I really love this process and how it breaks it down for students. So usually before we get into creating a podcast in class, it's often really helpful for students and us as educators to listen to a few podcasts to get an idea of the different formats that exist and how different podcasts are structured. And we'll get into some of the resources that we have for listening activities in a moment. After you've done some listening, it's really helpful to kind of sketch out some ideas for a podcast, just like you would storyboard typically for a video production. Writing down some jot notes or some scripting about what you're planning on talking about in your podcast is really helpful. And it saves a lot of time. What I've found when doing podcasts with students, if we give them the time to actually plan, script, and practice before jumping on the mics, it makes the whole process a lot of more efficient. And then finally, the last steps would be actually recording. And a lot of the recording can be done using just the mics that come in your iPads or your Chromebooks, whatever device that you're using. Of course, we can produce podcasts with external mics, but a lot of the recordings that we can do at a decent quality now with the devices that we have. So, and I'm just my two screens. As I said, listening to a podcast is usually one of the key steps that I would recommend if you're looking to produce a podcast by yourself or with students. And there's this wonderful website called Balado Web, where students from across Quebec have been producing web podcasts in English and in French. So if ever you're looking for a podcast for students to listen to, it's a great resource to listen to podcasts that were created by students themselves. And then we've had links here to a little form that we have to help students with that listening process. So noticing any sounds, noticing how the speaker is engaging the audience in their podcast. So those are just some additional resources today that you can look through. So we mentioned it really does help to plan a bit of the podcast. You don't need to write a whole script. I like just doing point form because that way I found the podcast comes out more authentic in the recording. But there are some different organizers that students and you can use depending on what type of podcast you're looking to create in class. Again, I'm not going to dive into these too deeply because I want to have most of the time to show a demo of how to create the podcast and videos in Canva, but they're there to explore. One thing that we found helpful when we do podcasts with students is assigning roles for students. So that way, if you're doing a podcast in a small group, all of the students have a task. So these are example role cards that Carol developed for one of our past sessions that can be copied and customized for your students if ever you find that helpful. Yeah. And then again, we always kind of get questions about ways to set up a podcasting studio in class, especially if you have a class of, 20, 30 students, how can you manage the recording? And there's a few different strategies. One strategy is having different kind of sections or groups. A lot of the mics that we have in our devices record in like 180 degrees. So it can be helpful to limit sound by having the mics face the wall or using different areas around the school. Another thing some teachers have found helpful if they find there's too much background noise when recording podcasts in class is sometimes having egg cartons or having some foam in a little mini vocal booth can cut the sound. And I know the GIF seems a little silly, but even like a heavy fabric can help divide the sound waves. So sometimes, we've done podcasts now in cycle 2 for elementary, even up to high school. And sometimes just having, a little recording studio underneath the table or having some blankets put up can be helpful in terms of noise. Sound. Oops, sorry, my mouse went over to my other screen. Wonderful. So when doing a podcast with Canva, we try to focus on a few basic steps: recording, basic editing, so taking out the ums and ahs for content, adding music or multiple tracks of audio, and then adjusting the volume. So we typically fade in and out the music in the intro or the end point to highlight the voice, and then sharing. And just again, some quick tips. We have most of the time for designing, some tips for cover art. We always want to keep accessibility in mind, keeping things simple if the students are designing cover art for their podcast. And when recording, I always tell my students, do a sound check first, because I've had students that record, a 5-minute podcast or 10-minute podcast, but accidentally have the mic on mute. So it's always good to do a simple sound check before beginning. I always tell my students to smile, because when you smile, when you record a podcast, it really comes through in the audio recording. Recording in short chunks is always easier for editing in Canva, any software. And knowing that podcasts don't need to be perfect. First off, it's okay to make errors in podcasts. It's a learning experience, and they don't have to be perfect on the first try. Okay. And here are some troubleshooting tips for Canva. Again, like checking if your mic is working, checking to make sure that the editing is there and that you've renamed your files. Okay. So I'm going to jump into Canva to do a little bit of a demo of how to create a podcast. So from here, I'm just on the main screen of Canva, and there have been a few updates in Canva in the last 2 or 3 weeks. So the process has changed a bit. So in templates, I'm going to start by typing in podcast video. Because of the updates in Canva, they've added more functions to create a podcast, but the functions are only available when you're in a video editing mode. So it's a big change, but it's just something to keep in mind. So I'm going to search for podcast video. And from there, I'm going to select one of the templates that I can customize. So today I'm going to select this one. It's kind of fun. Okay. Perfect. So from there, for anyone, you'll notice that I have my visual at the top. Okay. But also now that I'm on a video editor, you'll notice that I have a timeline here with my time in seconds. And I have the different elements that are part of my image. Okay. Oh, so look, I can see here, this is the text. And it can take a bit of getting used to editing elements with multiple tracks. Okay. So from there, I can go in and I can customize all of the different parts of my podcast. Okay. Oh, I'm just going to move my Zoom screen here so I can actually access all of my tools. So right now I want to edit the image, so I can zoom in and I should be able to grab this, not being able to grab it right now, but I can go in and change all of my text or my background color, similar to if you're creating an infographic or another type of visual on Canva. And then, perfect, I'll just put this Canva podcast. Okay. So once I'm happy with my background image, and you can tell this one has a lot of elements because it's a moving background image, I could delete those or remove those as I see fit. Okay, maybe I'll delete those just so we have a few less elements now to work with and make it a pretty basic one. Then I'm going to go to record my audio directly in Canva. Now you could upload audio that you recorded elsewhere, but I find personally when I'm working with students that it's typically easier just to record directly in Canva. So I'm going to go to the left-hand menu to Uploads. And when I'm in Uploads, you'll notice this button that says Record Yourself. I'm going to click on Record Yourself. And from there, there's a few different options I can select. For a podcast, I'm typically not going to record my face or use my camera. I'm just going to record my audio. So I can select Record Voiceover. And then at the bottom, I can select what microphone. So I'm going to just use my default microphone and press record, and it will count me down. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Hi, everyone, and welcome to my podcast on Canva. Right? So then I can press finish. And from there, I have my voice recording. Okay. Now, one fun feature about Canva, if you're using Canva Education, again, thinking about background noise and the realities of a classroom recording so many students in the same small space, is that Canva has a bunch of AI features, one of them being this enhance AI voice feature, which helps kind of remove some of the background noises in any recording, which can be very helpful. And it works for audio clips under 10 minutes. So I'm just going to apply that. It takes a minute, and then there it says that my vocal clarity was enhanced. Okay. Typically for podcast, they have a structure. They usually have an audio or music and an intro and an outro, sometimes in between. So to add these to my podcast, I can go to Elements, and I can browse by category and select audio. And from there, I can select any kind of music or audio that interests me for my podcast. Maybe I'm going to feel festive. I'm going to have some jingle bells. So you see that's added as a separate track underneath my voice recording. And from there, I can drag it and adjust it to where I want it. So right now I'll have it at the beginning, and I'll make a copy using my keyboard shortcuts so that I have it before and after my voice. Okay. Just going to take a minute because I see some questions in the chat, and I want to make sure I'm not going too fast. Okay, just problem solving. That's amazing. So from there, if I listen to it, maybe my music is too loud and I want it to fade in a bit before my vocal recording comes in. So I'm going to click on the fade, and I'm going to have my music fade out so that it gets a bit quieter before my voice comes in. And maybe I'm going to have it fade in here so that it gradually goes up. Okay. And that is the basics of a podcast. So your audio recording, usually if I'm doing an audio recording podcast in Canva, I might record the introduction, then I might have students take a break and then record their body and then record their conclusion, kind of like doing a paragraph structure. It kind of reinforces the writing process, but that's the basic structure to creating a podcast. Okay. I think I showed everything I wanted to show. So the next thing I'll show you before going too fast is creating a video. And creating a video works very similarly to creating a podcast, except for that you're also having visual elements usually. So I'm going to go back to my home screen of Canva. Great. And I'm going to look at videos here. And from there, I can see all kinds of different video sizes. So if I want it landscape, if I want it vertical, horizontal, and there's all kinds of different video templates. And templates are amazing because you can even create a template for a podcast or a video that's half done and share it with your students, which can be a huge time saver. So for example, maybe I'm going to look up a video on there must be a video on the water cycle. We'll see. Oh, there's lots of water bottles. Let's see. I didn't specify video. I don't know. I just look up education video and we'll see what comes up. Oh, education math video. Interesting. So this is from here. I can add some different templates here on the side in my designs about math class. Perfect. Great. And they're similar to my podcast. When I'm adding a video, you'll see down here, I have my timeline. Okay. And then I'll have all of my different elements. Okay. And similar to my podcasting, say I want an element to go on longer, I can drag it, okay, and adjust it. So perhaps in here, I have my text, I have my welcoming, and maybe I want to add some visual elements to come in after that are animated. So I'm going to go into elements, and from there I can add different animated elements. So I'm going to look up animated maybe arrows. Perfect. So for here, maybe I want to have this come in after, and you'll see it does take some use to navigating the different layers sometimes of the video. And from there, I can adjust it, I can move it, I can adjust the timing of my element, the angle, just like I'm doing a slideshow. Okay. One helpful, fun thing to do videos is that maybe I want to add a video of math. So I'm going to look in elements, videos, and maybe I want to have a video of this person here. I'll just add it to my design. Okay. And then maybe now he's covering the purple background, and I really wanted that purple background. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press my background remover. And from there, you'll see that now he's on top. So then I can play around with the layers to adjust them and the timing to have him maybe be in front. So if I go to layers, I can select my person, and I can move him more to the front of my design. Oop. Ooh, he doesn't want to move. Oh, because he's attached to the background. So I'd have to detach the video from the background there. That's working. Okay. And that layers button I find is really helpful when we are designing and playing around with videos, because then I can select, like if I have multiple elements, and move them from there and move them forward and up. Okay. So I'm just going to go back to the presentation to see if there is anything I missed. Carol or Lexi, feel free if there is anything I missed from our plan.
If you'd like, I could take over and I can show a couple things that I'm thinking of, and then I can continue with the next part.
Perfect.
All right. Okay, so you should see my screen. So I'm going to go ahead and open up Canva again. And just like Stacy did, I can select the video that I want. And I wanted to show a couple of things. One of the things that I know Capo really likes to show a lot of the times is using frames. So you can use frames for photos, but you can also insert videos. So if you click on the left to your elements and you scroll down, you can find the frames button. And these are different shapes that you can use to insert static images, but also videos. So it can be a really fun way to make your videos a little bit more interesting. So if I have this kind of flower frame here, what I can do now is, again, I can come back to elements, and this time I'm going to hit videos, and I can search for videos that might be interesting. So maybe I'll look for something to do with nature. And I'll go ahead and drag this in, and I can drag it to that frame. And now that video is going to go ahead and play within that frame that I've inserted. So it can be a fun way to have different shapes within your videos. And just like Stacy showed, you can go ahead and drag the length of that video. Okay. And then there was one more thing. Oh, I just wanted to show too, of course, you can use the videos that are already in Canva. There's a lot of media that's available to us, especially if we're in our Canva for Education account. So you can see the little crown here, which is showing that it's a premium item. But if you have your Canva for Education account, those premium items are available to you. But you can also easily upload your own videos. So again, just going to the uploads button. You could record live, or you could upload files. So if you've recorded on a different device or on the computer itself previously and you want to import those videos, you could do that as well. So I have, you know, a little clip here. I could drag that in and pop it there, and you can see me talking. Okay. So what we'd like to do for the next kind of 15 minutes is we'd like you to decide if you'd like to experiment with making either a podcast or a video. We're going to be here, and you can feel free to raise your hand, unmute yourself, ask questions. But the idea is take some time to practice the things that Stacy just showed us, either by making a podcast or making a video. And if you have any questions, we're right here to help as you experiment with different things.
Do you want to maybe show, since you're sharing your screen for those wanting to do a podcast, just how to go type the video podcast video specifically, and
Yeah, I can show that again. So if I'm in my Canva, like Stacy mentioned, we have to be careful with what format we use. So if we just type podcast, we'll get these kind of square images, but these are going to be static images for, you know, maybe advertising a podcast. But if we want to actually be creating the word video in there to make sure that we're getting a video format. And you're getting a video format if you have this little like play button, because this is important since we need to be able to have those different layers of tracks. And so I'll see that down below where I have all the different tracks available. And I can adjust this as needed to see all my tracks, and I can drag it so that I can adjust. I can also zoom in here as well. So I like to zoom in personally by hitting the control button and then just scrolling on my mouse, control or command, depending on what computer you're using. And then again, like Stacy showed, we can go ahead and edit the visual elements and then add our voice. Just like that.
I'll mention too, because as I said, Canva's done a bunch of different updates recently. Before you used to just type in podcast and you could get a podcast cover. If you accidentally open up a podcast cover, I believe they have re-added a feature. So if you right click on the image, sometimes you can have an edit as a video button that allows you to switch between the editors.
Let's try. So if I just go podcast. So currently I don't have those tracks as we mentioned, but if I right click like that, I don't see it though.
No? Okay. Maybe it...
I think you'd have to do is you'd have to resize it to a video probably, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's just easier to start like podcast video and then you don't have to worry about those details.
yeah, because then it's that extra step that can be confusing to students. I'm just looking at the interactive whiteboard for questions. If any of your questions were not answered throughout the workshop, don't worry. We're going to take a few minutes after to go through the sticky notes and answer your questions, because I see there's several ones about how can I share my podcast afterwards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I see too, there's a question, how do I add audio to one slide only? So if you wanted to add audio, for example, to this presentation, you could go and follow the similar steps to creating a podcast where you could go to uploads and record yourself and then select one of the options there, either the talking head if you want to have a video or a voiceover.
And also, if ever you're like, we're presenting Canva, but if ever your presentation is within Google or Team or Microsoft, there's also a way to add audio to those slides as well. So not just within Canva.
So if you can see here, I've got a few different slides kind of open. I have the one with the hummingbird, I've got some bees, and I've got the ocean. I can, with Canva, there's a lot of different ways to do the same thing. You could go ahead on the bar here, but also below, currently, since I don't have any audio, it has this option to add audio. So I could go ahead and just click that there, and it has all the different types of audio that I could possibly insert. So I could record, I could generate some voice, I could use different kinds of music. And right now it's just there, but I could search specifically like ocean sounds. Let's, pick one. And it has put it now in where my little kind of time marker is, but I can then drag it to different parts. And so if I wanted the ocean sounds to appear just during the ocean part, you can adjust, click on it to adjust it to the length of that slide. And then I can do the same maybe for bees. So I could always drag this here. Let me find some bees. And then currently you can see that the bees sound is going to overlap with that ocean. So I can go ahead and click it and drag it to adjust. And just like Stacy had shown earlier too, we can go ahead and if I click those three dots, I have a few different options for adjusting it. So I could fade it out. I could also fade it in. So it doesn't just abruptly stop or end or start or end. And then you can play around with adding, fonts and text, which you can also add animations to. So when you click on different items or elements, you can animate them and you can decide how they appear within, and you can adjust the speed, the duration, sometimes the direction. I don't know if you heard the buzzing, but
I had to step out 2 minutes before for the bus stop. Did you present the background remover within videos?
Yes, they can show
My
that.
favorite.
Okay.
I was just thinking, did we show transitions? I think I know I forgot. I'm not sure if you showed transitions.
So I'll show the background remover first, and then we can look at some transitions. So just in case you missed that earlier, when you have your video, Canva has a really great feature. Again, if you're in your Canva education account, you can go ahead and hit that background remover, and it's very smart, and it will remove the background. So you can then decide, maybe you want to place this animal in somewhere it doesn't actually belong.
The city.
Oops. I'm gonna go find, where did my, hold on a second here. Okay, I'm gonna try again. Add my lion back in.
Can you have your two, like when you're joining two different audios together, can you have one at a lower volume than the other one? How'd you do that?
Then, so when I click, so I have my crashing waves here. If I hit those three dots, I can go to the volume and I can adjust it to be louder or less loud. And then if I had, say I wanted to add voiceover. Welcome to the ocean. So now I have that voiceover too, and similarly, I should be able to click, I just right-clicked here, and I can go ahead and adjust the volume that way too. So I could put that one maybe louder, and then if I click on my ocean sounds here, I can adjust the volume for the sounds to be more like in the background. That's a great question. So lots of opportunity to layer, your audio, layer your images. So here now I have that lion taking over the city. And then we wanted to show some transitions as well. So if I come back here, there are a few different ways to do this. So what I want to do is add a transition. So on again, the three little dots, you can go ahead and add transition, and then it will pop open some different ways you can transition from one slide to the next. And so now you see that little transition symbol that links those two slides. So here there currently is none. Another way I can do it is when you're hovering here, sometimes you can see I have the opportunity to add transition. So I can similarly click there and go ahead and select the one I want. And again, you have opportunities to adjust some of the settings like that. You can always decide to apply that transition between all your pages, and then they'll all be uniform. Sometimes it can be overwhelming to have 18 different transitions, and it can be distracting. And even for students too, if we don't want to waste too much time, it can be a good idea to say, okay, pick one transition, apply it to all your pages, finished. So now we can see there's going to be that transition. Any other questions while we're on a roll? You can either unmute or you can type them in the chat. We'll show next up how to kind of share your work.
I think just a comment. I think Canva is great for the library of resources that comes with it, like the audio, the images, the video. If students can also upload like exterior audio, images, videos, and I think once again it's a great conversation to have with them about copyright. So was it free of rights? Are you allowed to be using this in your video? Who created the original? Should you be citing it? So those are good digital citizenship conversations to be having with your students and teachers too.
Okay, so I think I will show now how you can go about sharing your products when you're finished. So if you have something that's a little bit more polished than I do, obviously with the 10-15 minutes we had today, I don't expect anyone to have finished their work. But when the time would come to do so, there are a few different ways to share your product. So in the top right, and I'm just going to, because I know we've had this trouble in the past, I'm gonna come down here like this. So in the top right of the screen, you should have your share button. And when you click that open, actually, let me pop over really quick. I'm going to open up in my different personality. So, because I have an account, I have a Canva education account. So let me show you from there what it looks like, since it looks a little bit different. Okay. So in my Canva, you know, I've made a video. It's a beautiful masterpiece deserving of an Oscar. When I'm ready to share, so if you're in the Canva education account, it looks more like this. So we have share and we have assign. And let me just, because I know sometimes our Zoom faces in this top right corner. So in the top right corner, we have share and we have assign. So I can go ahead and share this. Currently, you can see only I have access to it. I could choose to share this to other people if I would like. So I could go ahead and add my other self. And I could decide what rights they have to it. So they could edit, comment, and or view. And I can share it that way if I want them to be able to see kind of like the product while it's still being worked upon. But let's say that I want to display this somewhere. There's a few different ways we could do this. One, we could use a public view link. So if I hit a public view link, it's going to create basically, I mean, right now, here, let me really quickly go and add. There we go. Okay, now there's actually something to my video. If I hit public view link, okay, I can create that public view link. And when I hit copy, if I were to open a new tab and place that in, you'll see it looks just like a video that can be viewed. If I wanted to share this on social media or other platforms, you can go ahead and select them here. If you probably have to have those links kind of those accounts linked already. One way that I just prefer to do it is usually to download the video first. You can download it as an MP4 since we're working in a video. And then, you know, once it's downloaded, you can open up the social media platform or whatever other site you want to share your video on and share your video that way. As a teacher, as an educator, if you're in the Canva education account, you can also assign work. So in the top right, we have assign. And basically what this is going to do is it's going to share it to the students who are in my class. So if I've set up my Canva education like classroom, I can do it that way. So I can assign it to students in Canva. So if they're already connected in my classroom in Canva, I can click that and continue, and it's going to send it out to the students as kind of a task that they need to complete. Similarly, if you are connected to Google Classroom, you can connect your Google Classroom and Canva together, and it can be integrated that way, which can be really practical. For now, if you feel like comfortable sharing, what we'll get you to do is we'll get you to go ahead and hit share just to practice, and we'll get you to hit the public view link, copy the link you create, and I'll come back to my Learn Me. And in the slideshow that we have, you can go ahead on this whiteboard. Once you've copied that public view link, if you just hit paste, so I like to do Control V, it's actually going to paste that video right in here. Now, of course, this is nothing complete or beautiful, but it's just to get a chance to explore the functionality of this. So you can see, I can double click on it and it will actually then play the video within this whiteboard. So you can go ahead and experiment with that. Again, obviously what you've created may not be finished, but that's fine. if you wanted to give it a shot, and we can see how we can test this whiteboard function for sharing your creations. And of course, this is something you could do with students. And then of course we can go ahead and I might be able to say, really awesome video, right? And we can add comments and so forth. So it can be a great way to get that sharing, collaboration, and brainstorming together as a class.
Lexi demoed this with videos, and it's really fun because you see them physically appear, but it can be done if infographics, the thumbnail will pop up, podcasts too, you'll be able to listen to them all on one page. So it's a really fun feature within Canva. So if someone did try to create a podcast, if you do the same thing to create a public view link and put it, then we could listen to it directly on this page.
And just like before, earlier when we were using the whiteboard, we can zoom in to the different creations. And you just need to double click and then you should be able to interact with it.
And maybe just speaking of sharing, especially for podcasts, Stacey mentioned it at the beginning on slide 8. There's a site called Balado Web, and it's actually it's a map of Quebec. And when students upload their podcast, it pins to the area, so it's geolocated, which is really fun. For example, if they're creating a podcast about cultural elements of their or local history or community stories. So that's a really fun one to do. It was actually developed by Learn in collaboration with the RÉCIT consultants. So it's a free platform where you just have to upload the podcast and then it's going to be pinned. I kind of challenge you to do that because like so far it's really populated with French podcasts, but it'd be really nice to have podcasts from the Anglophone community. I know it stemmed too from EMSB. There was a project years ago with the RÉCIT consultant Kishgi about historic locations in the neighborhood. And then the students, they created podcasts about locations, historic locations. And the project was so popular that the city actually made bronze QR plaques. So when you're walking through that neighborhood, you can scan the QR codes and hear the student podcast, which is really neat to showcase student podcasts.
That'd be such a cool thing just to do around the school. Have kids read stories and podcast it around the school and they could follow the story.
I love that idea, you know, you could showcase them that way and students could listen to it. You're consuming and creating. I know there was another project too that was done in second language where the students researched their neighborhood for immigrants who were arriving and who were newcomers to the neighborhood. So they would tell them the important places to go and about the library, the restaurants, the school, about the community. And they printed out a brochure with the QR codes and they left them at the local library and different public places so that newcomers could learn about the neighborhood they were arriving to.
Karen, it seems like you might be having trouble with sharing yours. Because for me, it looks like it's not accessible. Is that correct? Is it the same for the others?
I was able to access it once I clicked on it.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay, cool. Awesome. Okay, so let's we have just a few minutes left here. So just as we've done previously, we'd love to get your feedback and just give you another chance to explore the whiteboards here. So if you'd like to, you can choose one or multiple of the questions we have here on slide 21, and you can go ahead and add your response. You can do that by hitting tools and then going to select a sticky note, and it's going to put that sticky note in there. And if you want to, you know, practice with some GIFs here. So you can also insert a GIF kind of showing how you're feeling after today's workshop. So the way to do that is to come down on the left to apps. And if you search GIF, there's a couple different ones, but I usually pick this one, Giphy. And within that, you can select, maybe you're feeling amazed. And you can go ahead and select the one you want to insert. So just give 2 minutes to get your thoughts and feelings out. If you have any other questions, feel free to let us know while we're here. Yeah, video is the key word in previously it was working a little bit better, but again, Canva's done some updates, so the keyword there is to put video. Make sure you have a video format so that you can edit it more easily. It's the easiest way to get to it.
I'd actually use this as a little demo. Kathleen, do you mind right-clicking on your note? Because before I mentioned it can be anonymous. So you can make anonymous sticky notes or it can have your name. So here Kathleen already has her account, but if she right-clicks on her sticky note.
I can show it here.
Do you want to do it? Just, oh, there, she was able to do it, yeah. Yeah, actually, so we can't see what she's doing. Do you want to show it with a post-it?
So when I go to tools and I insert my sticky note, you'll see if I make it bigger, it has my name here down at the bottom. What I can do is I can click the 3 dots and I can just, hit remove name, and then my name does not appear. So
if you know your students are feeling a bit shy or you want to really brainstorm anonymously, that's a fun feature within Canva.
You choose to add your name back the same way. So you can decide, if you want to have that brainstorming be a little bit more open, you can let students do so anonymously, or if you prefer to have them have their names attached. So lots of different opportunities.
And so, sorry, I'm losing my voice, but to clarify, because I noticed like I removed my name, I saw it and I thought I was done, but then I reopened my screen and saw that no, it wasn't. So I had to click off first in order to remove my name. So like, and also, I keep seeing other people's cursors float around and I know who they are. Is there a way to remove your name even from your cursor?
That I don't think so. That's a good question. We'll have to look and we'll come back at the next session with the answer. From what I gather, I think, ultimately we are this is a very collaborative platform, so you're typically working together.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think we'll look into it because
Well, just in terms of anonymity, like if you really want to be anonymous, but someone really is trying to figure out who's saying what, just kind of have to
you gotta type really fast and get out of the post.
You know what I mean? Like it's not, I'm not trying to be like a stickler, but like depending on what your subject matter is, you might really want to make sure that, and I just feel like maybe it wasn't Canva, maybe it was like back when it was Jamboard, that you did have more anonymity. So I'm just wondering if they do have that kind of feature here.
I think depending on what you're looking to do, if you use polls, you can have polls where they can type in like short answer response. That can be much more easily anonymous, where you wouldn't have because everyone would be clicking on the same poll and then your answer would be in there. But we'll do our homework and we'll come back for the next session. So speaking of next session, we have another one coming up December 9th. And we're going to be looking at basically kind of assessment and how can we kind of, use Canva for those assessment purposes. So we'll look at, maybe creating portfolios or also looking at the polls and other options for kind of getting that assessment data. So if you're able to join us on December 9th, please do. And we'll be recording that session as well to put that available to everyone. Just a couple quick last resources we wanted to share. So if you need more support from us, we have our 2 main websites. So the first one is the Digital Competency and Action site, which mainly focuses on technology and integrating that into your teaching. And then we also have our Learn website, which has a lot of other more generalized resources. And then you can find us on social media. We have on the DCA site, we have this web page, which is multimodal productions, and there's a lot of helpful resources on video and podcast creation. So we invite you to go explore that. There are some great suggestions for, what to create. There are checklists and other tools to use when doing this with students. And finally, just a couple of Canva resources that you might find helpful. So we have the Canva an Essentials course for teachers, and they also have some different templates for teachers and for students. So we'll stay on. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll stay on if you have any questions. We don't need to rush off. But otherwise, we hope to see you December 9th.